Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Dropping the Gloves. Good morning, Tim. I'm back in Michigan, feeling good. Back in my home base here. I feel more comfortable. How are you? You look showered. Last episode on Friday, Tim had to make sure he was showered before we went on because he has to look good for YouTube now. It's very narcissistic of you.
Okay, is that an accurate depiction of what happened? I was sweaty
wanted
after
to
the
tape,
gym.
and I
was
said
sweaty.
he didn't want to go on camera. Oh. And then, he had to shower.
I was gross looking. I had the sleeveless tank on. No one wanted to see that. But yes, I am showered today. How was your drive back?
Very vain of you.
How was your drive?
Drive was fine. Drive was good. I'll tell you what. It's funny. I love my kids and their friends. I heard so much, and I'm sure parents out here know the pain of this, but it was around 20 hours in the car there and back. The whole time, Tim, there was this concentration, like the kids doing the clap game where they like clap and then hit their friends and stuff. It was like, it's just not, they had three of them. There's like concentration. There was one that says up, up, down, down, side, side, like, and they move their hands.
Double this one, that
double this, double that. It's funny that you know the clap. Do you hang out in parks a lot? How do you know this?
I had little cousins that did it.
Oh, it's maddening.
Yeah.
10 hours straight. Like, we didn't get back on Friday until like 1 a.m. Saturday morning. You figure a kid would fall asleep, but no, they talked and did that stinking thing the whole time. I didn't want to be the Grinch. Stop it. Ugh. But I did a moratorium on it for our house. No, not allowed the rest of this month and then into July. Tired of it. I'm just tired of it.
How'd chickens do while you were gone?
One died.
What?
Apparently, it was a stress-related death per my mother-in-law because it laid a really big egg. Which I don't know about that. I think
it laid a big egg and then just plopped over.
That's what she said because she saw the bird sitting on the eggs and was dead. And she's like, it might have been that or it overheated. Definitely an overheat. The coop's in shade and we have ventilation. I don't know. It was acting weird for the last couple of weeks. It was not looking good, but yeah, it's so funny that it was stress related. She just laid a really big egg and died. I'm like, is that what happens? Does that happen to people? They have a big baby and they just die? My mom, she's lucky to be alive.
What do you do with the chicken when it dies? Just leave it out in the woods?
Oh my gosh! So this is the funny part. So we've dealt with this. I buried some. I've just thrown some in the dumpster. The garbage man picks them up. So I just tell him, like, the dumpster's by the road. We have one of those big blue dumpsters. The garbage man comes every week. I'm like, just throw it in the dumpster. That's what we've done lately. She's like, oh no, I feel bad. We're going to have to bury it. I'm like, well, you can bury it on my property. Go find somewhere. She's like, I have it in a Tupperware bin in my back seat. I'm like, what? She's like, yeah, it's sealed and it's in the back of the car. I'm like, so you put a dead chicken into a Rubbermaid container, sealed the lid, and it's in the back of your car right now? Oh yeah, I'm going to bury it. Psycho. Like, just absolutely, just like bonkers that someone would do that. Isn't that psychotic? Well, you probably really would. You're like a Dexter type guy. Where you you got a lot of, this wouldn't phase you at all, Tim.
I'd be worried about the smell of that thing in the back of the car.
Isn't it weird?
Did she bury it or what?
I just stopped the conversation. I just said, whatever you want to do, you go for it. I gave her an out, dumpster by the road. She didn't take it. You're on your own after that one. Feel free. I think I even said, do whatever you want. That's fine with me. Just get it out of my house. Because I thought I'd come home and be on like the table in the Rubbermaid or something. But it wasn't. She has it. She's a weird cat. And then she told my kids, get this. So we have a lot of deer in Michigan, obviously. And now we have more because people don't hunt. And so there's lots and lots of deer. She says, and she told my kids this, that she takes her hair and sprinkles it around the property because the deer will smell her hair and they won't come any further. It's like a force field for deer because the deer will come in and eat her plants and flowers. But if there's hair, they won't cross that barrier. It's like when you pee, a dog, they might mark their territory. So she takes like eyebrow hair and eyelash, all the hair, she collects it. and sprinkles it around the property. And then so when my kids come over to her house, she brushes her hair, takes their hair and puts it around the property.
Ooh.
Isn't that weird?
I mean, the logic of it makes sense. I never thought of it, but like, I get that. But no, it's strange. I'm not.
Right?
That's weird to me.
What would you do if you saw your neighbor sprinkling hair around the property? And you go, oh, hey, Tim, what are you up to? Oh, just sprinkling my hair around the property. Oh, cool. Like, I would move. Like, that's
Back in the
weird.
house, honey, I don't want the kids talking to Tim anymore. I don't think.
Yeah. Just keep them inside. Yeah. It's so that's my mother-in-law. She's a weird cat, man. She's a weird cat.
She's a nice lady.
Nice lady who keeps dead chickens in the back of her car in Tupperware containers and sprinkles her hair around the property. Oof.
You think
my
I'm
kid's
Dexter?
hair.
Yeah.
Man, she's next level. She's very, very nice. But yeah, that stuff, sometimes I wonder, everybody's got a little serial killer in there. And I think she could pull it off. But anyway, speaking of pulling stuff off, Tim, can you believe we are here? Before the Stanley Cup Finals, we said, what is your dream for the Stanley Cup Finals? Both of us go to Game 7. That's it. That's all we wanted. We hadn't had a good series really in the playoffs up until this point. Vancouver, Edmonton was a decent series, but Edmonton was the better team. They just weren't performing that well. And then you had a first-round matchup between Toronto and Boston, which was very entertaining. Now we have one. And it's come in the most unconventional way, the most historic way. Battling back from 3-0 in the Stanley Cup Finals has been done 3 times to this point. Never has a team won except for the Toronto Maple Leafs in 1942. So the Edmonton Oilers are knocking on the door of history. They could be the second team all time to do this. Come back in the Stanley Cup Finals, being down 3-0 and to win the Stanley Cup. The first road team to do it. Toronto was the home team. Edmonton is the road team or whatever. Very, very, very impressive feat, especially in today's age of salary cap, parity, this and that. It's an impressive feat any way you look at it. And we got a lot of heat the last few episodes. We weren't giving McDavid props enough. We weren't saying how good he is. We weren't singing his praises. What do you want us to do? Everybody and their brother is just blowing smoke up this guy's behind. Yes, he's fantastic. He's the best player on the planet. I get it. I'm trying to highlight other things. We're trying to be a little different, contrarian to the norm. So if I'm not pleasing you Edmonton fans by just saying how great McDavid is, I'm sorry. We can do that. He's fantastic. He's the best player on the planet. Am I missing something, Tim?
Well, it just goes to show, on the other side, I've gotten a few complaints from Panthers fans saying we talk too much about the Oilers or talk about things from Edmonton's perspective and too much about McDavid. And so people hear what they want to hear. Everyone wants to think that they're the underdog and the victim. So whatever. It goes both ways.
Everyone's playing the victim. That's right. That's right. But what's not playing the victim is Bet365. They've always been the top of the heap. They're never the worst. They're always the best. And this episode is luckily enough brought to you by Bet365, proud partner of Dropping the Gloves. Open an account today at Bet365 and bet on a huge range of markets. So whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. You use code HOCKEYCA. No better time to use it than tonight. Game 7. Very exciting. So we want to do a little recap. How did we get here? I think everybody knows. Down 3-0, comeback 3-3. Not many people have been in this situation, Tim, where you're down 3-0 in an NHL playoff series and you come back and tie it. You're lucky to be talking to one right now. I was in this situation, Tim. Not, I would say, a decade ago with the Chicago Blackhawks. We were down 3-0 to the Vancouver Canucks. We came back, tied at 3-3, went to Game 7. Joe Quenneville, if you talk to him today, what's your biggest regret as a coach? Game 7 versus the Vancouver Canucks, I sat John Scott. We would have won a Stanley Cup. We would have went back-to-back. But I sat him, and we lost that game in overtime. Thank you, Chris Campoli, turnover. That's a big regret. And we're going to look forward to this game. Hopefully the coaches don't have another regret. But how did we get here, Tim? Let's go through it. Just to backtrack, because I think everybody's recapping Game 6. We can do that and go over how Verhaeghe stunk and Barkov is, suspect and Draisaitl showed up and all the different things that everybody's already talked about. People who listen to our show are hockey fans. They don't want us to do that. We'll touch on it a little bit. But how did we get here, Tim?
Yeah, I thought it was worth doing, especially because the series has dragged on for like 2 weeks already, and like this stuff feels like a lifetime ago, especially like we said last week, all the other hockey news that has happened. So when you have like a historic comeback like this that's turning into a game 7, I think it's good to kind of put it in perspective and the path to getting here, like you said. So we'll do the first few games quickly. Games 1, 2, and 3, the Panthers dominated. There were some games that were closer than others, but they're relatively easy wins. They outscored the Oilers 11-3 in those 3 games. And at that point, McDavid had no goals. Draisaitl had no goals. Hyman, Nuge, Bouchard, no goals. The Panthers basically had it on lockdown. Bobrovsky looked great. The offense looked great. The defense looked great. And the Oilers just looked like they didn't belong. And really, the only question was, will the Oilers be able to get one? Can they extend the series at home? Can they go for the gentleman's sweep? The series was over. We all called it. We all just described what we were seeing. And so it basically seemed like it was over. And it's almost disappointing. Like I thought they put up a better fight at this point. That brings us to game 4. It's at home in Edmonton, and they dominate 8-1. McDavid leads the charge with 4 points. Bobrovsky gets pulled for Stolarz. Everything's going Edmonton's way. And there's basically, at this point, you give them a ton of credit for one game. They refuse to be eliminated in front of a home crowd. But we're all sort of thinking, well, at least they didn't go down without a fight. You know what I mean? Like, this thing's going 5, and now it's over back in Florida. And again, we all kind of thought the series was going to be over. Game 5. McDavid gets 4 points again. They get to start the game with a shorthanded goal from Connor Brown. They have 2 goals in the power play. The Panthers get blanked on the power play. They hold back a third period comeback almost from the Panthers, and McDavid gets the empty netter to ice the game. It's 5-3. And this is where things really, really start to get interesting. The doubt starts to creep in for Florida. The Oilers are starting to believe it's possible. There's momentum shifting. And you said at this point, it was 3-2 Panthers. And you said, momentum's a funny thing. The Oilers are down 3-2 in the series, but they're the ones who feel like they have the upper hand at this point. Can you talk a little bit about just the momentum swing heading into game 6 over the weekend?
Well, I just feel like if you do go back, and I don't want to disagree with you too much, but you mentioned that Florida dominated the first 3. I think that's overstating things. I think Bobrovsky was dominant in the first 3 games. I feel like he played really, really well, especially game 1, where the Oilers outshot them 2-1. And he just stood on his head, and that carried over into games 2 and 3. And we'll touch on that in a second. By the way, game 1, Tim, June 8th. June 8th. It's the 24th right now. This is 2.5 weeks ago that game 1 occurred. So I think it's important to go back. The stars in those games were Carter Verhaeghe, Evan Rodriguez, Luosterainen played really great, and obviously between the pipes, Bobrovsky was lights out, and that carried over into game 2. It was our Rodriguez show. He gets 2 goals. Ekblad gets an empty netter. It was the second and third line carrying the luggage for these guys, and then you had Bobrovsky playing fantastic. But yeah, fast forward to game 6, the mental game is the Florida Panthers are walking on pins and needles. You're going in to an opposing team's barn, very hostile environment at Edmonton. You heard it. They chanted Bobrovsky the whole game. Like, they were in his kitchen. They were jeering him. They were a hard fan base to play in front of, which was great. If you lose that game, which they inevitably did, you could go down as one of the biggest choke artists in NHL history, let alone sports history. This is the Stanley Cup Finals. It's not 1942. How many teams were in 1942 in the NHL, Tim? 8?
6? Yeah.
Yeah, not many. So to get upset in the finals was, not a huge deal. It wasn't as popular as it is now. Every team was pretty stacked. This is 2024. This doesn't happen. You game plan, you strategize, you don't lose 4 in a row. Has Florida lost 4 in a row in the regular season? Probably not. 3 in a row? Maybe a couple times. So at this point, going into game 6, you're like, we need to. The pressure is on. If we don't win this game, we're going to be the laughingstocks of everybody. We lost last year to the Vegas Golden Knights. Wasn't even close. This was our year. We came in, we were a juggernaut team. We all play the same way. Everyone has been saying the same thing the whole season, and it's come to fruition. Now we get 1 win away from lifting the cup, and we can't finish it off. And here we are in game 6, and then it starts out the same way. Our first period is horrendous. I don't know how a team can go from being so dominant in the playoffs, including the first 3 games, to just completely shut it down. Game 4, 5, and 6 in the first period. It's not even close. The first period in Game 6, they were lucky it was 1-0. I think Bob played pretty good in that first period. He's stopping Evan Bouchard. He's making great saves. I think the shots at one point were 11-2, 12-2. It's absolutely embarrassing. It shouldn't happen, and it starts from the top with Tkachuk and Barkov and these guys. But now, Tim, Game 7, they almost have less stress now going into Game 7 because here we are. Like, that's it. We blew our chance. We could have won any one of these last games and been Stanley Cup champions, and now this is it. There's no more. There's no tomorrow. So it's almost easier to have a Game 7 mentally for the Florida Panthers than it is for Games 4, 5, and 6. When you take your foot off the gas in Game 4, I get that. Game 5, you panic a little bit. You're at home. Maybe everyone's patting you on the back. Here we go. Game 6 back at Edmonton, all business, and you still get worked. Now you're super crazy nervous flying back to Florida. It's Game 7. If we lose, whatever. Like, now I feel like there's still a little bit of pressure, but it's just do or die. I think Edmonton's flying high. They're on the other. I've been in Edmonton's shoes where you win Game 4, win Game 5, win Game 6. All of a sudden, hockey's fun, man. Like, you're smiling. You notice the post-game pressers for the Oilers players as the series has progressed, and rightfully so. The first 3 games they lost and they were miserable and they were asking the same question. Power play can't score. What's going on there? McDavid's not scoring. Draisaitl, you only got 1 assist. What's going on? This and that and the other. All of a sudden, they're winning games. They're joking around. McDavid's smiling. Draisaitl's smiling. Everybody's having a good time. They're playing with the house's money at this point, Tim. They should be out. This shouldn't happen. This never happens. Once in 100-some years, this has happened. Here we go. They're going to make history. So it's neat to see the differences. Paul Maurice trying to just cool the jets on the Florida Panthers, trying to, oh no, we're fine, this and that. We got a bad break, the offside, Bobrovsky this. We're okay. We're going to stay with our system. We're going to be fine. And then Edmonton Oilers on the other side of the page. We're just trying to win one game at a time. Not get too much of a big head. It's interesting how the coach has done a really good job on both sides. I think both coaches have done really well in kind of managing the expectations and the situations. But yeah, it's been quite the series so far.
It's amazing, and I think historic is a great way to put it. And some people are calling this one of, if not the most important game in NHL history. If you look at the perspective of everything, of what it means to that city of Edmonton, obviously the 3-0 comeback led by the best player of his generation, who might go down as the best player ever, to do a historic comeback that no one has really ever done before. 1942 is a different league. It's a different world. You know what I mean? It's basically never been done before. And so, yeah, I think those comparisons are fair. I think Friedman tweeted out this morning, maybe 1994 finals is up there too, but like, it's one of the bigger games in NHL history, certainly in our lifetimes. And you look at the players, there was a post yesterday of the Oilers guys coming out of like drinking coffee on the road or whatever, so relaxed, smiling, happy. Mm-hmm. They don't care that they're going to play in Florida. They've already won there. Like you're right. Like it does take a lot of pressure out, but I think it's a good point about Florida too, where you don't have to worry about blowing it because you've already blown it. Like that, you know what I mean? Like now just go out and win one game. Everything's on the line. And I feel like, and I have to hope that you're going to get some stuff from Florida that you have not seen in this case, 10 days. Looking at Verhaeghe, I know you want to talk about him. Sam Reinhart in games 4, 5, and 6, 0 points, -6. Not to mention Bobrovsky's letting in like 4.5 goals a game or whatever it is. And I think if I was looking at both rosters, as big as McDavid is, obviously, I think Bobrovsky is probably the most important single player on either team. Because will he show up? Because Edmonton has shown that they can win if McDavid doesn't have 3, 4 points, whatever. And they can win even with Stuart Skinner having a bad game. But I don't know that Bobrovsky letting in 3 or 4 is going to get them a chance to win tonight. So what's interesting that he did not practice with the team yesterday, which is the first time he's basically ever done that. They had Spencer Knight and Stolarz practicing for the guys. So whatever he's doing, he's kind of doing alone. And I think he's mixing up his preparation. Who knows what that means in terms of like, is it mental? Is he meditating? Is he doing stuff on his own? Is he doing his routine? But he's treating Game 7 differently than he has in the last couple of days. And I wonder how that'll impact his play tonight.
Which, from a goaltending standpoint, I'm not a goalie, but I've talked to a few around the way. That's not a good sign. You know, you want to be in your groove, you want to be consistent, but you want to have just a routine. They live and die on routines. That's what they do. That's how they thrive. That's how they play their best. Everything's regimented. Do this, this, and this. You just shut the brain off, and then you go and perform. If he's starting to divert away from that to try to come up with an answer to why he's not playing as good as he should play, that's trouble, right? You're grasping at straws at this point. And this is game 7. Like this is the last game of the season. There's no more hockey after this. So that makes me a little nervous that he's just stepping away. Unless he's done this before. Maybe he has. I don't know. But I don't like this. But on a positive note for the Florida Panthers, their coach, Paul Maurice, this is his 5th game 7. He's been here, done that. It reminds me of a joke. What's the name of an Indian who's been everywhere and done everything? Been there, done that.
Okay.
That's a funny one, right? I like that one. But
Sure.
Paul Maurice has, that's not racist, is it? No, it's fine. He is 4 for 4, Tim. 4 game 7s, 4 wins. So the guy's definitely been here a lot. I don't know if that brings anything to the table. This is his first run with the Panthers in game 7, I believe. But so far, if history repeats itself, they'll be hoisting the cup tonight. Who's going to be the hero, though? We talked about Bobrovsky needs to show up in order for the Panthers to win. We talked about how McDavid didn't have any points last game, and they still win. So he's not needed to stand on his head and put up 4 or 5 points. It's been the unsung heroes for the Edmonton Oilers stepping up. Games 4 and 5, the PK, Warren Foegele playing a huge role. Who is the hero tonight for each team that's going to lead them to victory?
I think, as you were talking, I was thinking about it. I think if it's Edmonton, I think it's going to be a depth player who's the hero. Whether it's Foegele, like you said, who I think does he have 4 goals in the series? Janmark, who's been great. Henry, Connor Brown, one of those guys. And if it's Florida, I think it's going to be one of the stars. It's going to be Tkachuk finally, Verhaeghe or Bennett, Reinhart, one of those guys who have basically been invisible for the last 3 games. So I think it's going to be a depth player for Edmonton and a star player that's kind of disappeared, finally showing back. And I think probably Tkachuk. He scored a bunch of overtime goals in the last 2 years. Like he's made for a big moment. He wants it. So we'll see how that goes. What do you think?
For me, for the Edmonton Oilers, it's Evan Bouchard. I feel like he has just stood out for me in every single game. He's playing fantastic. He's playing physical. He's stepping up, making big hits. He's jumping up in the rush. He is so good at just being that second, third option into the rush, where the Florida Panthers, when that top line is on the ice, everybody over back checks. We got to stop McDavid. We got to stop Hopkins, Hyman, everybody. We have to get back to the house and protect everything because they're going to have, all the space in the world. So everybody just over back checks. And then Bouchard comes in the second or third wave, and he's always wide open. Last game, I thought he could have had 2, 3, 4 goals with the chances that he had. So I think if Edmonton wins, Bouchard will have a couple goals, if not a goal and an assist. He's been playing really, really solid. So I like him. And for the Florida Panthers, I don't know. It's been so disappointing how they've played the last 3 games. Their first line's been atrocious. Their second line has been invisible. The only line that's been consistently okay is the third line of Lundell, Luostarinen, and Tarasenko. Their most dangerous player last game was Oliver Ekman-Larsson, for Pete's sake. It's been really just a no-show for this team for the last 3 games, where no one has shown any signs of life or any dangers. And I think you have to give props to Edmonton in that regard, where they're playing really solid defense. Like they really are. I'm not just saying Edmonton, or excuse me, I'm not saying Florida's just not showing up. Edmonton's playing really, really good hockey. They're back checking, they're smothering, and they have puck control. But for the Florida Panthers, I think it's Sam Bennett. This guy's been there. He's proven he can produce in the playoffs. He's been snake bit in the last, obviously, like the whole team, the last 3 games. But him, Rodriguez, and Tkachuk, they have to show up. I don't think Verhaeghe has it. I don't think Reinhart has it in Barkov. They've just been dominated. You mentioned what was Reinhart -6. Carter Verhaeghe, the last 3 games is -8. Last 3 games, Tim. That's terrible. I mean, -3, -3, -2. You are on the first line, arguably the best team in hockey, and you are getting rickrolled. Like you're playing absolutely terrible. And last game, it's 0-0. and you give up a terrible turnover. And this is not a conventional turnover where he just gives it to the other team. He gives a pass to his teammate. I don't know if it was Reinhardt or Barkov or whoever it was. He just throws it on his back skate. The guy has no chance to corral this puck and to control it. And so he gets teed up with the turnover because it hits his skate. But Verhaeghe rockets a pass on his back foot. And it's just like, what do you want me to do here? In the neutral zone. Edmonton picks it up. They go the other way. Draisaitl goes backdoor to Foegele, and it's a 1-0 game. And it's away we go. You're at home. The crowd's rocking. It's hard to come back from that. So it's just, he needs to show up. And he doesn't have to score a goal, Tim. He doesn't have to do anything spectacular. Just be even. Be even. Don't make any stupid plays. Don't give up any goals. Don't score any goals. Be even. If we can be even your line, I like our chances with the third and fourth line. I do. I like Luostarinen. I like Lindell. And Tarasenko, I like him too. So just don't mess up. Don't mess up. Because I think that's where the game's going to be won and lost. Who's messing up? And Verhaeghe's messed up pretty substantially the last 3 games, which is unfortunate because he's a good player. I like him.
Well, you mentioned Paul Maurice too, who's 4 for 4 in Game 7s, and a lot of that, being on good teams, good coaching, matchups, in-game decisions, all that stuff. But if you're him tonight, are you making any changes to the lineup, or is it on the players to just produce and get it done?
Well, he's tinkered, right? Like he brought Lomberg in, he brought Cousins in, he sat Lawrence, he sat Okposo, but that's just fourth line stuff. Not as substantial as changes as Chris Knobloch. He even tinkered with the lineups between Game 5 and 6. He took Foegele off the top line, put Nugent Hopkins up there, so he's still making moves with his lineup, and he's winning. So if I'm Maurice, I think I would have done this a long time ago. You have to mix it up. Your lines are not working. Put Evan Rodriguez up on the top line. Move Verhaeghe down. Get Luostarinen or Lundell. Like, mix things up. But like we said at the top of the show, Maurice is just going to do what he does. He's going to stick with the guys who got him there, the lines that got him there. He's going to stick with how he plays, the same coaching strategy, the same mindset. Nothing's changing. That's how we got here. You got to commend him for that. He's not changing anything. But at the end of the day, if you look across the ice at the opposing coach and you go, okay, well, they were down 3-2 to Vancouver and he made some adjustments and then he wins the series 4-3. They were down 2-1 to the Dallas Stars. They made some adjustments and they win the next 3 to win the series. They were down 3-0 to us and they made major adjustments and now they're on the precipice of winning the Stanley Cup. Knobloch is making adjustments every single series. And not just fourth line. That's easy. Oh, we're going to make some roster changes, lineup changes. We're going to take Lomberg and put him in and take Okposo out. Well, who cares? Is that going to really change the game? Is that going to change the outcome? No. Like, he's making first line changes. He's filtering guys in and out to try to see what works. That takes some cojones for a first year coach, especially. So Maurice, he should have did that in Game 5. After they lost Game 4, the way they lost it, and Game 5 started to go south, he should have mixed something up. Bennett, Tkachuk, and Rodriguez is not working. Barkov, Reinhardt, and Verhaeghe is not working. They should have mixed it up. You throw Tkachuk with Barkov and Verhaeghe. Put Luostarinen on the first line. Bump Verhaeghe down to the third line. Like, just do something to change it up to see if anything works, because now it's too late. You can't all of a sudden just, Game 7, we're going to mix up the lines. It's too late. It's too late to make these changes. So, no, he won't make any changes. This is it. This is their team. Throw them out there and see who plays better.
My final question for tonight, I don't expect this to happen. I think Bobrovsky will bounce back and have a stronger performance. Whether or not enough for a win, we'll see. But how short is his leash? If he lets in 3 goals and 10 shots in the first, do you yank him or do you stick with him?
No, who cares? Like, if you give up 3 in the first 10, you're going to lose. Like, there's no... There's no one's getting yanked in Game 7. Like, that's it. This is it. This is our team. This is our decisions we've made. If you're having to pull a goalie in Game 7, you've already lost. So this is it, Tim.
Yeah.
This is it.
Fair
There's
point.
no changes. This is our team. This is game, what did they played 82, and now this is their 16th, or how many games in the postseason they played? 20-something. There's 100 and some games. That's it. But anyways, I want to touch on this before we move on. People talk about how good the Edmonton power play is, the historic power play. These 5 guys are so incredibly good. Let's give props to the PK. The Connor Browns, the Jan Marks, the Ryans, the guys who are on the PK, Nugent Hopkins. They have killed 44 of the last 45. It's incredible. They arguably are the reason they're in this series still. Game 4 and Game 5, Connor Brown picking passes off, going down. Fogle gets the first one, I believe, and then Brown gets the second one shorthanded. Won them those games. Jump-started the team. Let's go. Gets the first goal for both games. Changes the tone of the whole entire series, getting those shorthanded goals. So just a brief shout-out to the PK guys. They don't get much accolades, but they deserve it. They are incredible. And yes, Connor McDavid, well, he didn't get any points last game. Should we talk about that?
Is he okay?
Is there something going on there? But what that did do, he won't break Gretzky's record now. He's 5 points behind. So I did see somewhere that Leafs Nation is very funny. They're very self-deprecating, and they always find ways to make the Leafs just look even worse than they are. So Connor McDavid has played 24 games in the playoffs so far. He's 42 points. You look at all the Leafs players in their playoff career, I think Marner leads the most. He's played like 60-some games. He's got 50 points. Matthews has like the same amount of games. He's got like 48 points. McDavid almost has more points than all of those guys in their whole career, and he's in one playoff run. It's just very funny to look at that stuff. And then they started comparing it to teams this regular season, how he would fare in the point standings, and Ottawa guys were talking, and he would be like the 6-point getter on their team in the regular season. If McDavid was playing for the Blackhawks, 24 games, he'd be their third leading scorer for the whole season. Like, it's incredible. He's having a very good playoffs. If they lose, Conn Smythe has to go to him. Based on the last 3 games, how Bobrovsky's played, how the Panthers have just shut it down, no one's really stood out to win that award. It goes to McDavid if they lose. Even if he doesn't get any points, he's done enough to win the Conn Smythe, in my opinion.
Yeah, unless, again, you get a 40-something save from Bobrovsky shutout or whatever. Or,
even then,
Barkov has 4 points or something.
I think even then, Tim, because they laid a stinker the last 3 games, I don't think he is earned. In the next guy I would vote for, honestly, if Florida wins, Evan Bouchard. He would be my second pick. McDavid, Bouchard, number 2 for Conn Smythe voting.
Wow.
No matter who wins tonight, I think those 2 guys have played lights out. So,
all right, we'll find out.
I'm not a voter. They don't give me that chance to vote, which they should. They should.
I vote. I'm on the list.
Are you? It doesn't surprise me. You're a very honest person. Yeah, I get it.
Let's get into some quick hits here.
Let's get into it.
We'll save our predictions for the end, as always. 2 retirement announcements over the weekend. Andrew Cogliano and Derek Brassard. Cogliano had 463 points in 1,200 games. Here's the cool stat. He only missed 27 games total in 17 seasons from injury or whatever else. It's remarkable. He played a long time. Remind me of Matt Cullen a little bit. Just stuck around forever and stayed productive and stayed useful. And he won the cup finally.
Is he related to Andrew Cogliano?
What did I say? Cogliano?
Yeah. Are they brothers?
Very funny. He finally won the cup with the Avs in 2022. Derek Brassard, 545 points in just over 1,000 games. He played for 10 different teams. A couple of them twice. Just really, he's a suitcase, but good career.
Yeah. You can't fault him for that. That's some longevity. If you play more than 1,000 games, I don't care what you say. And Cogliano, especially 1,300 games, quite the feat. Hall of Fame?
No. The other news over the weekend from Russia, Michkov, who was the phenom Flyers prospect, reportedly going to end his contract with his KHL team and come play for Philly next season. He's a huge talent, instant star. Like he's just so impactful right away. And they're even talking about its impact on the Flyers roster and even negotiations with a player like Konechny, where they suddenly don't need him as much as they might have without Michkov. So I don't know how much that's going to play out, but he should be back and playing over here, and he'll be really good right away.
If it's one thing I know, John Tortorella loves flashy Russians.
Yeah. Any European,
mark
really.
It down. Loves the way they play. Just taking risks, sacrificing defense for offense, flying in the zone. That's Tortorella hockey, baby. I'm excited to see this. It's going to be fun. How long until this guy's a healthy scratch? That's what I want. Like, what's the over-under?
Watch him not make the team. He's a 13 forward.
Mark my word, this guy will be a healthy scratch. He'll have like 17 goals in the first month, but he'll scratch him. I don't like the way he's playing. That's not Flyers hockey, baby. Good. It's nice that they're getting him over. That's good. We need more skillful Russians in the game. They always work out. There's never an issue.
You know what? And this goes into our next point is, someone made a good point over the weekend with a tweet. You always think of the Russians and the risk of taking them in the draft because you never know with them when it comes to when they come over.
Yep.
If you look at the last 5 years, all the players that have caused issues or trouble has been U.S. players and mostly college players.
Yeah.
Right? Not declaring, and it comes up right next with Rutger Mcgroarty, who was the first round pick in 2022, I believe, with the Jets. Apparently his team, him and the team were at an impasse over the direction of his career to the point where they might have to trade him. And the rumor is that he doesn't see a route to making their NHL roster this year, and he does not want to play in the AHL. He's a first-round pick. He was a captain of the U.S. team in the World Juniors. He played for the University of Michigan. He sees Frank Nazar, former teammate, going and playing for the Blackhawks right away. Another teammate was playing for the Blue Jackets, and he thinks he should be in that group, but he doesn't think he'd play for the Jets, so he wants out of there. And the Jets might have to force his hand. So we'll see how that plays out. He could be traded this week.
First of all, can we just acknowledge how great this guy's name is?
Yeah.
Like the possibilities for branding are through the roof. Rutger Mcgroarty?
I hope he's a star and you have to say his name every week for the next 5 years.
Is it
on the show?
McGroarty?
McGroarty.
I'm going to call him McGroarty. I already know it. He can't. That second R doesn't fit. But all that aside, the power and the influence young players have on the game, it's never been higher. And I don't blame this kid. Why would you want to sign in Winnipeg and maybe not play? They have a lot of good forwards. So if he doesn't crack the lineup, what benefit is for him to go play for the Manitoba Moose? Why? You play for the University of Michigan. You're the star of the team. You're the captain. You can stay there and just be a stud on campus, get a degree, play twice a week, go to frat parties and have fun. There's no benefit to go pro anymore. It'll be there. Players have shown that, well, we can wait. And if he waits, what happens? He becomes a free agent. He can sign a big ticket anywhere he wants. He can pick any team he wants to go to. Players have all the leverage. The NCAA is so enticing now for star players to go to because it's a win-win. Oh, you get drafted by Ottawa and you don't want to play there? Just stay in college for another 2-3 years. And you can play anywhere you want. Become a UFA. Pick of the litter. Sign a huge signing bonus. Go and pick any team, any city you want to play at. So I think that has to change. I don't know what the out is there, but it seems to be more and more common, like you said. Every year there's a guy who doesn't want to go where he's drafted. And he just re-enters the draft or becomes a UFA. Because why would Rutger want to go to Winnipeg? Honestly, what incentives are there? He's going to be buried in the roster in the depth chart, and you can stay.
And you're in Winnipeg.
And you're in
Winnipeg.
I was trying to tiptoe around that. I was trying. Winnipeg sucks.
You know who his best friend is? Cutter Gauthier.
What is going on with these names?
I know. I feel like they were destined for the first round with names like that.
Rutger and Cutter. Like, it's just incredible. What am I going to name my kid? 1 month, Tim, by the way. Or
I was going to ask about that, yeah.
Yeah, 1 more month. If it's a boy, just like, what's a good, like, manly... You know what's funny? I've thought about naming him Dick Scott. And that's a serious thing. I'm not joking. Like, that is on my list. I think it's an old school name.
You mean Richard, right?
No, straight up Dick. D-I-C-K. On the birth certificate. I'm not even joking.
Why?
I just think it's a nice name. It's a throwback name that's just been slandered.
You got to go with Richard and give him the option. That way you have Ricky, Richard, Richie.
I don't
Dick.
like that. Because I don't even like my girls who have longer names. Gabriella. Oh, we're going to call you Gabby. No, her name is Gabriella. Call her whole name. So I'm not going to name my kid Richard to have him have an option. If I want to call him.
His entire life, every coach, every teacher, everyone he ever meets, is that short for Richard? And he's going to have to say no every time he meets somebody.
Or I can call him Richard and he never wants to use the name Dick.
Let him, or you're going to have a girl and her name is going to be
Dick.
Mary.
There's only one outcome here. But back to Rutger Mcgroarty, there actually is a trade on the table that we have heard. Per NHL trade rumors, the Jets and the Blackhawks are close to a deal. There's talks for a mega deal. There's Mcgroarty and Nikolai Ehlers from the Winnipeg Jets, who obviously they can't fit anybody under the cap, everybody under the cap. They don't want to just keep rolling out the same guys. They're looking to mix up the roster. Ehlers and Mcgroarty go to Chicago for Connor Murphy, Lucas Reichel, and a first-round pick, which is the second overall. So you're getting Ehlers, who is an NHL star already, Mcgroarty, who everybody says is right there on the cusp of being a solid NHL player. For Murphy, who has a contract, but is a decent 5'6" D-man. Lucas Reichel, who was a first-round pick, was very highly coveted. Everybody thought highly of him. He's played terrible for 3 years. He just can't find his footing. Either a first-line guy or he's going to be out of the NHL. He just doesn't have that defensive cachet. And the number 2 overall pick. Like, that's a big trade if that does go down. Because you're, like, number 2 overall pick could be a superstar.
Yeah, and this is a strong draft. I don't hate that trade for either team. I mean, I think, like, if you look at the value, obviously there's more, but you have no leverage with Mcgroarty, and Ehlers is a guy they might not be able to fit long term under their cap anyway. So this is a deal that can make sense.
It's an interesting trade. Nikolai Ehlers still a very good player, and then Mcgroarty could turn out to be a solid player. So there's a lot of risk there, but I think the higher upside is for the Winnipeg Jets just because they get that number 2 overall pick. Like, that's the key for them. If they can hit a home run on that, then this is a great trade for them. In turn, though, if Mcgroarty turns out to be the player that everybody thinks he is, this is a win-win for the Hawks. You get a NHL-ready player for Connor Bedard, and those two guys get to grow together. And like you said, Frankie Nazar in Chicago, you could have a U of M reunion there with those two guys. All right, moving on. The Maple Leafs have hired Mark Savard as an assistant coach. You, being a Bruins fan, love Mark Savard. He played great for the Bruins until Matt Cook ended his career maliciously with a terrible hit. Number 91 for the Bruins. Power play specialist, some people say. That's what the Leafs need. Their power play is always languishing. All these superstars can't figure it out. Is he going to unlock the potential that is a Toronto Maple Leafs team?
He's going to be part of the solution. They basically an entire new coaching staff. So he's a great hockey mind. He's been down in the OHL the last couple of years and has done well there. So yeah, good for him. I'm glad to see he's well enough to even be doing this sort of thing again.
Yeah, Scarface is gone. Guy Boucher, and he was in line. He wanted to be the head coach, so now he's gone. They have a whole new cast of guys, but this will be the group, right? That'll fix them. This is it.
Find out.
I'm excited to see the results. It's just going to be fun. Because is Shanny going to try to blame Craig Berube, old chief? I don't think so. That'll be an interesting fight. All right, tonight's tonight. Predictions: 8:00 puck drop, Game 7, Stanley Cup Finals. I don't think there's been a Game 7 in the Stanley Cup Finals in a long time. Going back to the Colorado era and the Detroit Red Wings, I know they didn't play in the finals together. They're both on the West Coast, but I can't remember. I'm surprised we don't have that stat. The last time there was a Game 7 in the Stanley Cup Finals.
Well, I mean, off the top of my head, 2011, the Bruins was a Game 7.
You always go back to the Bruins. It drives me bonkers.
I'm sure there have been others since then.
It's just
what's interesting? The last 4 Game 7s in the Cup Final, the road team has won all 4.
There you go. Now that's a stat that's worthwhile. That's good for Edmonton. All right, well, let's just jump to predictions, Sam. We've been tiptoeing around it for 43 minutes now. Who do you have, Edmonton or Florida? Tonight's tonight.
This is hard. It's really hard to bet against Edmonton when everything's gone their way. But I'm going to go with Florida tonight. I think you see some stuff from the players that you have not seen in basically a week plus
in a month and a
half. And I just don't think losing 4 in a row just doesn't seem like it would just thunderstrike me if that happened. So I'm going to go with Florida. It
doesn't seem probable or realistic for them to lose 4 in a row, but I think it's going to happen. I really do. Strangely enough, I don't have a dog in this fight. I could care who wins, but because Nation Network is aligned with Edmonton, my soul wants them to fail because I just want that whole company to feel shame and feel upset. That's just how I roll. I want people to be upset. But I think Edmonton's going to finish it off. I think they have all the momentum. I don't see McDavid slowing down. I think he's due for a couple goals, and Bouchard's going to show up, like I said, and Florida they're out of sorts. They're not the same team we saw.
Last question. The cup handoff? Who does McDavid hand to? Who does Barkov hand to?
If it's Edmonton, I think you have to go McDavid, the Nuge, and then it goes to Nurse. I think those three are the first three that get it, just because they're the longest tenured. I think they have the apples and the letters. But if it's Florida, gosh, this is where it gets tricky, because Okposo's not going to play if the lineups stand pat. So he would be the logical first guy. But if he's a healthy scratch, I think it goes from Barkov to Tkachuk to Ekblad, and then to Okposo as the fourth one. I think the fourth one is a tricky one.
I think Bobrovsky would be second. Don't you think he'd be the first handoff?
Oh yeah, goalies get pushed to the back. I think you go letters first, so it goes captain, Tkachuk, Ekblad. Ekblad's been there a long time, and Tkachuk is the heartbeat of the team. He's got an A, and then it goes to Bobrovsky potentially. But then there's a guy like Oliver Ekman-Larsson. He's been in the league for 15 years, and this is his first sniff of the playoffs. So there are options in Florida who they hand it off to fourth. Then in Edmonton, Corey Perry's already won one. Adam Henrique, he'd be a good option to kind of give it to next. He's been around a long, long time. But then at what point do you go, I want to hold, this is my first time. I want to hold the cup. I'm Draisaitl. I'm Bouchard. I'm Hyman. We're better than you. Give me the cup. Just because you're old doesn't mean you get to hold it first.
Well, either Perry or Tarasenko. I think they're the only two guys that have on either team that have won a cup before. So one of them is going to win their second and probably final cup tonight. Most of the others are going to win their first cup. And for most of those guys, it's going to be the only cup they ever win.
Verhaeghe won one with Tampa in the lockout.
Did he?
Or the bubble.
He was on I remember him on Tampa.
You're just not a good hockey guy. You don't know stats. I do.
Okay.
You got to do your research.
Was he on the roster? Did he play?
Yeah, he played. Yeah.
I don't
Google it right
think
now.
That's true.
You don't believe me? You don't believe me? Well, believe me, Tim. I'm not just making stuff up. But yes, that's always fun too. I bet you can bet on that at Bet365, like a prop bet. Who gets the cup second? There's nobody who's exciting. If Dallas would have won, that would have been very exciting because of all the older guys, superstars who haven't won the cup. My biggest regret, not winning a cup. I think I should have did that. But it didn't happen. Tim's frantically trying to prove me wrong with Verhaeghe.
No, he did win. I don't remember that.
Okay. Yes, thank you. You can send your apology to me at my house.
He only played 2 games in that playoff run.
Okay.
No, 8 games.
Okay, now it's 8. Oh, interesting.
Yeah. All right, we gotta end this episode. Not too long.
All right, everybody. We'll have some fun tonight. Watch the game. It's going to be a good one. Just enjoy it. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow. We're going to do a show after the cup win. Got to get the content in, baby. It's just going to be a fun night. So we'll talk to everybody tomorrow. Cheers.
Thanks for listening to Dropping the Gloves with John Scott, a member of the Nation Network of Podcasts. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts from to never miss an episode.